failing to see progress even though your diet, lifestyle, and light hygiene are all on point, then this video is for you. Stay tuned. Welcome back, my friends. My name is Sarah. I am known as Carnivore Yogi. Thank you so much for being here and clicking on today's video. Today, I'm really excited to share an interview that I did with my friend and teacher, Irene Lyon. Now, I stumbled upon her work a little bit over a year ago when I was really wanting to put together the pieces of healing the nervous system on a deeper level than what I had been taught through talk therapy and traditional methods. So we really dive into that in this conversation. It is a little different than a lot of my interviews because I get a little more personal, and at some points I feel like Irene is really interviewing me. But I really wanted to share this with you guys. And I also want to mention that Irene's 21-day nervous system program, which is what I started with, is actually going to be on sale on Cyber Monday, which is the 29th of November through the 30th of November. So I'm putting this out a couple days beforehand. So those of you who watch this can set that reminder and use the link that's in the information section to get $100 off of that 21-day program. If you've really been struggling and can't seem to figure out why you're not getting all the way to healing, I think that there's a lot of value and help to address the nervous system in a safe way. And as you'll see in this interview, I had some remarkable changes in my own physiology by going through Irene's programs myself. I really respect her and love her as a person. I'm also going to link her YouTube channel. If this is something that you want to dive deeper into in your own journey, I highly, highly recommend Irene's YouTube videos and her 21-day program as a starter program. So I hope you guys enjoy this video, and I'll talk with you again soon. Bye, guys. Hey, guys. Thank you so much for coming back and tuning in. Today, I'm really excited to have a friend of mine here. It's cool. A year later now, I consider her a friend. Irene Lyon, thank you so much for being here today.
Hey, Sarah. It's good to see your face and keep connecting. Yeah, it's been a year. Not quite.
Yeah. Not quite a year since our first conversation, but a year since I found your work and started really diving into it and applying it in my own life. So, you know how you see someone on the internet and you kind of feel like you know them.
It's weird.
Yeah, it was one of those where I was like, oh, wow, this is really, really wonderful. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious, like, were you looking for something specific? Like, do you remember?
I do. You know, I've always loved Dr. Gabor Mate's work. I've read a lot of his books. I've always been a big fan of his work. And what I really wanted to do for my audience and people that were following me, and I was doing some private groups at the time as well, as I wanted to bring in this aspect of how trauma and how stress truly affect our physiology. And I wanted to explain it in a way to people that was clear and understandable and relatable. And in my searching, I came upon your YouTube channel.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, I've never heard things really explained that well before, or in that way. And it was just mind blowing. So I started just binge watching your videos, as I know a lot of people do. And then I decided to take your 21-day course because that's one that someone can do at any time. And then, of course, I signed up for Smart Body, Smart Mind and was ready to start that when we started it this year, actually.
This year.
Yeah.
It feels like last year, doesn't it?
It does. It really does. Yeah.
That's great. You know, it's always so interesting to me when people say that they binge watch the videos. Because I don't really rewatch my videos, but I know they're out there, and it's just so odd that people are binge watching videos that are talking about like human suffering and trauma and the nervous system, but it kind of feels like it's time.
Well, you speak in such a way that is really relatable, that you explain situations and you tell stories. It's not like you're just kind of talking at people. Your videos are done in a way that I feel like you're talking with us and that you're really, truly having a relevant conversation. And that's why I think people watch one and then it's like, oh, I need to know more about
Yeah.
this. And they relate a lot of the things that you say to their own life. And when you start unraveling that, you're like, wow, okay, I
Mhm.
wonder these things that I have going on with my body, with my health. Yes, I know the food is important,
Yeah.
environment and all of those other things are important, but you start to think how much of what's going on with my health is due to the trauma and the stress and how that's truly affected my body all of these years. And so
Yeah.
it just becomes a big part of your healing journey to start to open your eyes to this whole aspect.
Yeah. And I'm going to put you on the spot and ask you a question. Is that okay?
Yeah.
So when you got in, when you found my work through the channel, and before you even maybe started the 21-day course, did you have in your mind this thought that, yeah, I didn't have any significant abuse growing up, trauma, like I don't fit into that category of like war veteran, PTSD. I know that you had chronic conditions because I know a bit of your story.
Yes.
Did you ever make that connection? Like, was there an aha moment where you sort of said, "Oh my goodness, this is actually bigger than I realize"?
The thing is, I felt that I had dealt with a lot of things because I do when I
Um,
tell my story of my childhood and everything, there's a there's a lot, and I haven't really talked about a ton of it out there in public. Losing my dad at a young age, and he died of AIDS, and that was pretty
mm,
traumatic. The whole thing was just crazy, and you feel like you've kind of dealt with it,
yeah,
and but you haven't. It's like
yeah.
you've done all the talk therapy in the world,
Mm,
and there's still, you see, when I started uncovering your work, I started seeing of, number one, I think like you're kind of alluding to, there are a lot of things that I didn't think that were trauma, that were trauma,
yeah,
and then the stuff that I thought I've kind of dealt with this through talk therapy, there was a lot still in my body on a somatic level that I hadn't found a way to really process and heal from, if that makes sense.
completely.
Yeah.
Well, and you said so you had done talk therapy
Oh
and
yeah.
emotional work and
Yoga and
all
all
this
the
stuff.
body stuff. Yeah. Yeah.
Isn't it interesting how you were, because yeah, you're right. You are a yoga instructor.
Hmm.
So you were in your body,
Hmm.
doing the movement, feeling your breath. You
Yep.
probably knew all the breathing techniques,
Hmm.
and it still wasn't piercing through to that nervous system layer.
Yeah, because and when you had the one video where you talk about the duck, now I can't look at ducks the same way again.
Uh-oh, which one was it?
It's You're talking about the yoga people basically, and the people who
Okay.
get super super into yoga and meditation, and they're calm on the surface. They're like a duck
Oh,
swimming on a lake, but then underneath it's like, ah, the legs are going all crazy. And I was like, oh my gosh, that is me. I've done
mm,
all this yoga and all this stuff, and I've spiritually bypassed a lot of these things for years and years and years. And
mhm,
it's like,
mhm.
you're all calm on the exterior, but what's going on beneath the surface is this almost eruption that's about to happen. And so when I saw you just really explain that, I'm like, oh wow, I feel like I've used the yoga and the meditation and these things improperly for a lot of years to kind of run from these things and not deal with them so much. When we talk about, oh, we're going to get in our body and we're going to breathe and all this stuff, but you can do all of those things and run just as easily as if you're not doing them.
Yeah, I find that's a really confusing one for people to land
Mhm.
on when they haven't gotten into the work quite yet. And when I say the work, obviously I'm biased, but the work that I put out there.
Yeah.
Um, and it really is a confusing thing because people will say, but I know how to feel my body. I know how to
Mhm.
breathe into my belly and move my spine and be sad and all these things. But there's just this almost, the other day I was listening to someone say something. It might have been one of the experts you were talking to. I can't remember who it was. Um, but they said, you can't do a measurement for love. Like, you love your spouse, for example. You feel it, right? You just know it, but you can't get a monitor that shows 10 out of 10 or 5 out of 10. And I find that with the nervous system stuff, because it's just this electrical system that touches everything, it's very, very hard to give someone a monitor that says you're here in your nervous system health, or you're here, or you're here. But when you get into the work, it kind of it shifts in a very almost elusive way, if that makes sense.
Yes, absolutely.
Curious, do you remember one of the first ahas when you were doing some of the work where you're like, this is different?
I think the first time I tried orienting, I was like, okay, this is different than like a guided meditation where you're kind of going on a journey. Orienting for me, it was just kind of this groundbreaking thing, because I truly felt like I was present in the room, and I truly felt like I could actually feel my body without putting like a hold for 4 or in, like with all these directions. It was like a freedom to be in the moment and not to have an expectation of how it was supposed to be. And it was strange because, like I said, I've done hours and hours of meditation, and I mean, flown across to the other side of the world to meditate for 10 days, 8 hours a day. I've done a lot of stuff. And orienting was like, oh, wow, this is so simple. Yet I feel like this wasn't something I've been missing as a part of all these practices that I've been doing. So yeah, it was really groundbreaking for me.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. The orienting piece it almost is criminal how simple it is. Like, and when we've had solid, secure, healthy attachment growing up, and the parents that we have allow us to explore and see things with wonder, like that infuses it into our system, that orienting response. But we tend to lose it really quickly with stress and strain and traumas and tragedy, like you said, with your father dying when you were so young, and it just shocks us out of the here and now moment. Do you find that you orient a bit more naturally now? My sense is you do.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. At first I kind of was making it a practice of like anytime I transition to a new place, I'm going to orient when I get there. Like if I'm just getting in my car to drive, I'm going to orient for a little bit before I start this process, because you realize how much of your life is just on autopilot, and how much we just completely turn off everything and we don't feel things going from place to place. And I feel like that creates a lot of dysfunction in the body by this constant turning off,
I'm wondering, like, what is it like having this lens of the nervous system on board with your daughter and how you parent? I don't think I've ever asked you that.
Yeah. I'm the way I see her has changed over the last year, and the way that I parent has absolutely changed over the last year. It's a lot more intuitive, and there's a lot more of me just allowing her to be her. Yeah. And that's something I've been trying to do for many years with her, ever since she started spelling on the letter boards when she was 9, and she'll be 14 in a couple weeks. So the last 5 years, we've been able to really have this portal into her world as a non-speaking autistic person to see how she perceives the world. And she's very tuned in to the quantum realm. I mean, it's apparent she's very tuned in. There's all these light waves that we don't see that she sees. But there's a lot more permission for her to just be her, and for me to stop getting in the way of that. And she makes a lot of noises when she's happy. She's very expressive.
Yes. I've heard them.
We're on WhatsApp and I'm trying to leave you a message and she's like, like I don't stop her from doing
No,
those things.
no.
I don't
And
stop her from being barefoot outdoors.
yeah,
If she wants to lay on the ground in our backyard when she comes home from school and just have that connection to the earth, I'm like, please have that,
go for it.
So it's, yeah, I don't try to stop her from being her and having the noises that she has, as strange and as weird as they are. And it's still hard for me in public sometimes because people
Yeah,
do stare at us, but I'm like,
sure. So
yeah,
what?
whatever. That's my
No,
child. This is who
yeah.
he is. So it's, yeah, this learning about the nervous system and all this stuff has definitely changed my parenting and just my view of my child completely.
It's interesting because whenever I do hear a message that comes to me from you and I hear her in the background, I just smile. And never apologize for that sound, by the way. Just
Okay.
don't apologize. Because it's important. And I've loved seeing some of your videos where she's like hanging out the car window door or the window, just like a dog.
Her
Just
whole
like,
body is just like in the wind. I'm like, okay, cool.
yeah. It's like, but the thing that's interesting is that whether we are non-speaking autistic or not, there are sounds I know that I make through this work that I never would have made 10, 20 years ago. And they don't make sense. It's not like a cry, like crying. It's not even a grr anger. There'll be just these weird gobbledygook. And it's feeling what's happening inside and being like, just like
Yeah.
whatever. And I do curb myself a little bit in public. But if there's no one around and I'm outside, I will make a sound that might not make any sense. And
Yeah.
it feels good. And we're animals, but we're human animals. Like we're not like a bear or a cat that has a specific roar, right?
Yeah.
The fact that we can articulate so many words and languages shows that we have this ability to express that biology, but in a very human way. So I say, the more weird sounds, the better.
Yeah. And it's so therapeutic and it just feels so natural. I mean, this morning I was doing my cold plunge and my husband came out and he was making me laugh. And it was like a little laugh turned into like, I was like laughing so hard I was almost crying. And he had gone inside long before he came out and made me laugh. And then I just started this laughter and it was like this crazy hysterical laughter because I'm in this like cold plunge tub and my body is like, whoosh, having all these, it's amazing experience. And I'm letting this hysterical laughter just go. And afterwards, I'm like, wow, that was a little bit weird, but it was just what my body wanted to let at the time. I'm like, all right, well, we're just going to go with that.
It's like you got a little hit of like some kind of psychedelic, but it wasn't a psychedelic, right? It's
exactly.
It's like an endorphin moving through. Yeah, we have a cold plunge in our bottom part of our house. Is an outdoor, like one of those clawfoot tubs. And we also have a dry sauna, so tend to go in there afterwards.
Nice.
But yeah, you kind of go in and you'll make these sounds. And we live in the city, so there's neighbors all around.
Oh, same.
and so at first I was like, well, maybe we shouldn't say, we don't want anyone to think that someone's dying over here, but now I just don't care so much. And it's often at night or in the morning and just like, let it out.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's one of the things that your course and your work really gave me permission to do is just be human, and express. And that was one of the cool parts of Smart Body, Smart Mind is when we were doing the different tones and and I felt weird about it at first, when I was doing it, I was like, oh, this is kind of weird. And I just kind of observed that feeling, the hesitation. I'm like, but why? What, because society tells me I'm not supposed to make these noises or do these things.
Yeah.
But when you do them, it's like so therapeutic and it's so helpful to the nervous system. And it really does help regulate things.
That's interesting to me because you would have done chanting and such.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I always thought the chanting was kind of weird. I was always the one who's kind of like, oh, like.
Yeah. Not gonna get too loud here.
Yeah, I never would kind of just like let it all out, which is interesting. Yeah.
It's a common thing when I used to teach in-person workshops, which seems like a world, a lifetime ago. There would be certain exercises where we get people to express out loud words. Like that's the painting, that's the wall. Like it's a way of orienting to the space, but rather than just seeing the things, you vocalize it in a room full of often strangers, in your group workshop.
Yeah.
And at the beginning, you hear it's like that's the floor, that's the paint. Like people were, and my partner and I that would teach, we were like, if you're talking as though you're afraid you're going to get busted, like take that out of your repertoire and just get it out there. And over time, the comfort level would come, and then people would start to giggle. They'd start to play with it. They'd start to be kind of childlike again. But it does show the conditioning that we have as humans to just, don't speak unless you're spoken to, and keep, your life force energy in, all those sorts of things.
And that's the big thing that I got through your course was, and your work is just permission to have emotions. Because one of the stories that you tell is, a child falls on a bike.
Yeah.
And the first thing we do is go to the child and say, you're okay, you're okay, you're okay, and try to shut down the screaming and the crying that the nervous system naturally wants to go through.
Yeah.
And that's what our society does. That's what we do to our children, is we try to quiet them. We don't allow them to let their bodies let these things out. And what ends up happening is that we trap and we keep these things in our bodies. And then we wonder why we have some of these chronic conditions. We just don't think our body holds things, but it truly remembers things.
It remembers things and it holds. I've been doing this work now since 2008-ish, like the full-on trauma work. I was obviously in other mind-body worlds before then. I'm still moving stuff out.
Yeah.
And sometimes someone will hear that and go, oh my God, that just seems exhausting, that you're still working on old things. But what happens is, and you might be able to back this up, as you get more out, you grow more capacity. Yes. And it actually feels good when a release comes out, because you know that that's good for you to process. Maybe it is a painful memory. Maybe it's a grief that you stored like deep down in your belly somewhere, and all of a sudden it just pops out. I wanted to ask you, Sarah, about the bladder stuff that you had, because I know that that occurred and shifted from what I believe when you did go into Smart Body, Smart Mind. But of course, the first course, the 21-day tune-up, is kind of a lead into that. What was going on with your bladder and what changed?
So it's, I'd been doing really strict carnivore diet for a couple of years, and I decided to start experimenting and adding in a few different things. And I don't know if it was one of the things that I added back in. I have a suspicion it's this, vegetable maca powder that I was trying out, that a doctor I interviewed was recommending for hormonal balance. And I'm like, I'm going to try this out. And I think it triggered something. I hadn't been used to having this in my body. If it was something that was in that powder, I started having uncontrollable, where I'd have to go pee like constantly, and it would be painful. And it would happen a lot at night as well. We talk about oxalates in our community quite a bit, and how those can irritate the bladder and cause issues. And so I was feeling like I'm having this big oxalate reaction to this powder. But even after I stopped the powder, it was continuing on. And I was it was very painful. And I would lay down at night, and I just would probably get up between 10, 20, sometimes 30 times a night to pee. It was horrible.
And was there actual urine there, or was it just that pressure? There was. So you were just...
There was. I was just letting go of all this fluid. It was insane.
Mm,
And I didn't understand it. I couldn't sleep. It was horrible.
yeah.
And we got to the part in Smart Body, Smart Mind with the kidneys and the adrenals and that
Yeah.
work of breathing into those and finding those different diaphragms in the body.
Yeah.
And it stabilized the whole thing. I had stopped taking the powder, but it continued on for a couple of weeks after I had stopped taking that powder. And I was like, what the heck? So of
Interesting.
course I went back to not to doing the powder and being pretty plain with my diet,
Mm,
but I couldn't get it to stop until we started doing the kidney and adrenal work. And within just a couple days of that, and I started integrating those practices, yeah,
yeah.
it brought it down. And I was like, oh, thank God,
That's
because
good.
I've dealt with IC before, interstitial cystitis, and been to doctors, and they don't really
Uh-huh.
know what causes it. It's the most frustrating thing in the world. And doing a carnivore diet was helpful for sure. I didn't ever have flares when I was doing carnivore, but
Yeah.
yeah, they don't really know what causes it. They don't really know how to fix it. I had tried a bunch of different medications at different times. None of them ever worked.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, doing the doing the work, the Smart Body, Smart Mind is like my body got out of whatever kind of state it
Yeah.
was in. It was almost
Yeah.
like it was in a sympathetic state, and I just couldn't sleep. I was just peeing constantly, and yeah, it was
Yeah.
really remarkable.
Yeah. Interstitial cystitis is, I have not experienced, well, that's not true, actually. I had a bout of something like that. I'm losing track of when, but it was to me something old. It was an old,
Mm.
I don't know what, there's no memory to it, but my body did a flip for a couple of months where I actually was getting heartburn, which
Mm.
I never get. Even if I eat too much, I never get heartburn. And I was burping and my belly was bloated, and I changed nothing in my diet, but it was just myself personally, the last year, 2 years, I've been healing a lot of whiplash and
Mm.
concussion trauma from my sports days. And I think my system was coming out of this deep functional freeze. And as you said, like the little duck with the feet, as you come out of that freeze, that activation visits your physiology, and then things flip. And what's interesting about the cystitis is, you're right, a lot of, like, it's not, no one knows what to do with it, but it is a
Yeah.
very common thing that we've seen. I know my husband's seen shift in clients quite simply. Like, it's a simple thing when you can get into that nervous system and really teach it how to regulate and settle. Because what's happening in that tissue is basically, it's like high level of contraction with high level of shutdown, and the
Yes.
system is like it's like a chaotic electrical storm in the tissues. And that's also what happens with migraine headaches and Crohn's and other autoimmune conditions that have this high level of tone but then collapse. It's like back and forth, back and forth. So
Yeah. And this is, you keep saying electrical. That's what I don't think people understand so much, is because they want to take a pill or they want to do a specific, and I do think diet changes help tremendously,
sure.
but they want a specific protocol or a supplement to fix
Yeah,
these things. And
sure.
after reading The Body Electric, which is an amazing book, if
Ooh,
people listening haven't read it, yeah, it's absolutely fascinating. You'll never look at the human body the same way again. He basically discovered the body as a DC electric current.
who's the author?
And Bob Becker.
Okay, we'll put
Yes,
that,
I'll send it to you.
we'll put
Yeah,
that
I'll put
somewhere.
it in the
Yeah.
show notes. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it is just absolutely amazing about learning how the body is this electrical system. And it's
Mhm.
not so much as like, we take a supplement or we do a specific thing, those things can help. But, energy travels at the speed of light in the body through the
Yeah.
fascia,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that is where we can make changes, is on an energetic level. And it's, like I said, that like the quantum field is a lot of light waves and energy that we can't even see.
Mhm.
The body is the same way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for that reference. I remember I was listening to you talk with Carrie, I
Yes.
think. Actually, I don't know if it was because I'm just devouring her stuff now too.
Yeah, I just did a
Um,
coaching call with her this morning and
she's fun. She's a fun
brilliant.
girl.
Yeah, she really
Um,
is.
I don't know if she was talking to you or Corey, another one of my new favorite teachers, but she was talking about scar tissue and
Yes.
and and it makes complete sense. But the way she described it, and we'll link that talk near this because it was like it basically stops the flow of energy. It stops the flow of everything when you have these big scars and this scar tissue. But it also is like when the posture isn't aligned, when there's a bone out of place, when there's a vertebra popped out or a rib. I mean, that's kind of the whole acupuncture
Yes.
meridian thing, right?
Yeah.
Um, no, it's so interesting, like so interesting.
Yeah, I
So
mean, one of the things that we've been doing, quantum hydration, is what she's been teaching us about, and about the collagen and the fascia
yeah,
and like how that energy just travels through at the speed of light. But one of the things that she was talking about this morning is just intention, and
Mhm.
emotion, and how those things have such a huge effect on our energy and the way that the body functions and the way that we're able to stay hydrated.
Yeah.
It's just fascinating. And one thing that I've noticed this year, after doing your work and making a lot of the other changes I've made just with my light and grounding and being outdoors, is that I hold on to my minerals now. And I would have the worst problem with not being able to hang on to minerals. And I'm constantly replacing. And now, if I take some minerals, they actually hold. I actually can keep them. Part of the
Inside. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and peeing all the time wasn't was definitely making that 10 times worse.
Hmm.
And it
Hmm.
was something in my body, and the electrical system was off. It was a miswiring, and it was yeah, and it was yeah.
I think my sense, this is just my prediction, Sarah. I'll say it here first
Okay.
for your people and my people. I have a feeling that this light work that you've gotten into in the circadian biology stuff, which I'm really just, I wish I had a whole month to just study all that
Yes.
stuff. I'm trying in little bits. I think that stuff and the nervous system piece, those together, in my opinion, are a massive magic bullet. And I don't like to use the word magic bullet lightly, but I do feel that if those two things are blended together, it's like you almost have everything you need. Not everything,
Yeah.
but a big portion of it.
Yeah.
So that's my hunch.
I really think you're right. I mean,
That's the
it's
hunch.
and this year it's come together, smart body,
Mhm.
smart mind, and meeting you and becoming friends with you, and then jumping into circadian biology and really learning more and more and connecting with all these people. And I see, my whole thing has been food, food, food. And then
Sure.
I got to this year and I felt like it's not doing for me what everyone else says it's doing. It's not working for me that way. There's things that are missing.
Yeah.
And adding these two things into my life have been huge. And I've transformed this year. I mean, I've made a physical transformation,
Yeah.
which everybody wants the physical transformation.
Yeah.
I feel like the spiritual transformation for me has been a lot more significant than the physical, but people can see the physical, that I've lost 30 pounds and
Mhm.
that, I look
You look
younger.
great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's these two things that
Yeah.
have added into my life that I think have catapulted me into this place and feeling so much better.
I fully agree. And the
Yeah.
spiritual piece is really important too. It's not something I used to really speak around or dive into as much, but even with my students who've gone through the courses of mine, they have said that by just learning and being in their biology, and we could even say with the rhythms that you're learning about with their circadian biology and light and the quantum, it connects us to, I believe, a higher dimension that we're meant to connect to naturally. as
Yes.
opposed to having to sit there and force the prayer or force the connection to whatever it might be that you're connecting to. When you get that biology on board in the human system, it's almost like the doors, I'm saying this, with air quotes, the doors of heaven just open up.
Yeah.
And you're just there. And it's like, oh, there you are. I guess
Yeah.
I just had to work on my biology and my connection to nature, and boom, there it is.
It's, and it's all, you say biology and connection to nature. I think that's it. And your work with the nervous system is the same as me, being out in nature for my body, because nature is where we're supposed to be. And when we start going against nature, when we start telling a child to stop crying, when we tell people not to have emotions, when we are shutting down our physiology constantly, we're going against nature. It's the same, it's on the same token of circadian biology, of being connected to the light, to sunrise, sunset, to winter, to summer, to the different seasons, and respecting those in our biology. What you do with the nervous system and your work is the same. I feel like it's on the same level, because I'm trying to get back into my natural rhythms with nature. And I'm also trying to get back into my natural rhythms of just being human, just a human being, with emotions and feelings, and not shutting that out all the time.
Yeah. And not just this brain that's on the go thinking. And I think that's an important part, because not everybody lives in, I mean, I know you're close to nature. I'm in a lot of nature where I live, but not everybody can be in that level. But there is something about when you get to know your biology with this nervous system lens, you actually can be in an apartment building. Yes, there might be a window there, but you can feel your human nature and connect to it and be nature, even though you're not in what we would technically call nature. That makes sense.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I know that we're kind of going back and forth, but I know, as you know, I've got a sale coming up.
Yes.
With the Cyber Monday. So what I'll just say for your audience, because I know we're going to post this on both of our channels.
Yes.
I wanted to talk to you, and I know you wanted to promote the work because it's helped you so much. And once a year we do a sale where that 21-day nervous system tune-up that you first started with is on sale, $100 off. Can't get much more simpler than that.
Great. Yeah. I paid full price for it, and it was worth every penny. So that's a really good savings of $100 off for sure. Yes.
Yeah. And then the one thing I will say for those that are new to my work is that if you choose to do this starter course, and then if you want to do the larger one that you did, which is Smart Body, Smart Mind, which happens in March of 2022, where you're learning about the kidneys and the adrenals and how to work with those places. The cost that you like, the payment to the 21 days is taken off of Smart Body, Smart Mind. So even if one is getting the discount right now at $200, so $200 for the course as opposed to $300, it's $197. We'll still give you that $300 off of Smart Body, Smart Mind in the new year. I hope that's making sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. And I have links on my channel here in the show notes for you guys. And if this is audio only, then that'll be in the show notes as well. So any platform this is on, you'll just click on the show notes to get that special discounted link. And and it's been so valuable to me, and it's just so cool. I feel so blessed and lucky that I get to do this work, and then I get to connect with people like Irene. It's like, is this really my life? Like,
yes,
it's so cool. Yeah.
Well, and I'll also put a little love out to you, because by meeting you and a lot of the great people I've met by being on podcasts, I've come across the circadian biology information. Maybe that would have come to me in a different way, but I feel like we're swapping secrets, right?
Yes.
And your stuff will help my folks, and my stuff will help your folks. And it's just kind of like a new way of going to university, strangely.
Yeah.
Right? We're creating our own curriculum.
Yeah, we are. And, I've got the nutrition piece,
Yeah.
but I feel so strongly now at the end of this year after having the transformation that I've had. I mean, I've been wanting to lose weight for a while. It's just kind of been one of those things. I'm like,
Yeah.
I guess I'm over 40 now, so it's not going to happen. I just had kind of put it on the back burner, but doing these things, putting these pieces in my life this year made that happen. And it wasn't like killing myself. It wasn't like pulling out toenails or anything like that. It was more of an effortless transformation because I opened my physiology. I opened myself to what nature really wants me to do. And yes, the food is a piece of that.
Of course it is. Yeah.
But it's not the whole puzzle. And that's where I'm trying to take my channel, my platform, and what I'm doing now from here on out.
Yeah.
We can talk about the food, but if that's all we talk about, it's just not gonna do for you you're not gonna get better. You might have move the needle, but it's only gonna move so far if you're ignoring the nervous system piece and you're ignoring your body's natural connection to light. That's just how it is. So
Here.
yeah.
Full agreement. Thank you, Sarah.
Yeah, thank you, Irene. And you guys, everything is in the show notes that we talked about. And you guys go follow Irene. You can go binge watch her YouTube channel. It's very binge worthy. So yeah, thank you, Irene, for being here today.
Oh, you're so welcome. And we'll stay connected. Keep sharing notes.
Awesome.